Okay, now this is a bit of video from the couple of fighter pilots. Well, this is one particular aircraft that from the Nimitz that chased the UFO back in 2004. Now I did a video about this the other day, but I didn't show any of the footage. This is from this is just a little bit from Secure Team, and it shows the pilot. I quite like this channel, by the way, Secure Team 10. He puts up some very interesting stuff, Tyler. So if you get to see this, Tyler, thanks and keep it up, mate. It's interesting stuff. Now, the pilot actually gives a narrative of what's going on here. Now, this picture is this vision is infrared. Okay, infrared from the aircraft.
It's a lot to take in. And while we're on the subject of that, I have some real news for you guys, which is that one of the pilots of a recent piece of UFO footage that was released by the government, you guys know it, I've posted it multiple times, has come out and publicly spoken about this sighting on a well-known cable news network. And so this U.S. Navy pilot who actually chased the UFO you're seeing in this footage recently went on and spoke about the event. So without further ado, I will play that clip here and we'll talk more in just a second.
Okay, so here's what the pilot's got to say about it.
UFOs have been the stuff of conspiracy theorists for decades, often mocked for talking about it, but maybe they shouldn't be mocked. Commander David Fravor spent 18 years as a naval aviator pilot. In 2004, he had an unforgettable encounter with an aircraft he said was defying the laws of physics.
Okay, so he spent 18 years as a fighter pilot, and during that time he had one UFO encounter.
Former Commander Fravor joins us tonight. Thanks a lot for coming on tonight. Tell us what you saw.
Well, we had launched on a routine training mission. When we joined up, we were told that the event was going to be canceled, and that we had real-world tasking, and we were sent out to the west. Now, take in mind that this has taken place about 100 miles southwest of San Diego, between San Diego and Ensenada, Mexico, on a clear, perfect day, blue waters. We get out to the spot where they tell us it's at. We start looking around, and both airplanes see a disturbance in the water and a white 40-foot long tic-tac shaped object just hovering above the water, going forward, back, left, right. There's no rotor wash, there's no wings, nothing. So as we drive around in a clockwise flow, we get to...
As we drive around in a clockwise flow. Now, if you look at that infrared vision, that aircraft is travelling in an anti-clockwise direction.
About the 9 o'clock position, and I said, well, I'm going to go down and check it out, and the other jet is going to stay high. So as we go down, and when we get to the 12 o'clock position, it starts to mirror us. So it's in a clockwise flow, and it's on the opposite side of the circle from us.
Still looks like it's moving anti-clockwise to me.
And we continue this. It's in a climb. We're in a descent. We're getting a great look at it. This whole thing takes about probably up to 5 minutes from the time we show up. I get over to the 8 o'clock position. It's at about the 2 o'clock position, and I decide I'm going to go and see what it is, and it's about 2,000 feet below me. And I cut across the circle, and as I get within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerates to the south in about 2 seconds and disappears.
What would you estimate the speed?
Well above supersonic. It like a bullet out of a gun, it took off.
So from what you know about aerodynamics, mechanics, physics, should this be possible, what you saw?
Not with the technology that we have today. Not at all.
Even now, even 13 years later, is there anything that you know of capable of this kind of behavior?
No, there's nothing I know of. I mean, when we saw the video with the IR, it has no exhaust, no discernible things of anything form of propulsion.
That is interesting, because we're looking at it we're actually looking at the infrared footage, and there is no heat plume anywhere. So that is interesting.
And this thing came from a dead hover over the water, just kind of moving around, to a climb up to about 12,000 feet to rapidly accelerating away in a climb, and in less than 2 seconds it was gone. And you figure you're talking 50 miles of visibility, and you can.
Yeah, so he's talking about 50 miles of visibility, so you could actually physically see this thing. They didn't have to use the infrared to see it. They could see it with their eyes. So if it was, if it was visible in the normal optical spectrum, why isn't there any video footage of it? Why isn't there just ordinary video from any of the cameras on these aircraft showing this white Tic Tac, this 45-foot white Tic Tac? Why are we seeing a rather fuzzy infrared image?
You see an object that size easily out to 10 miles, and it just disappeared in seconds.
What would be the effects on a human pilot of the G-forces involved in that altitude change?
Well, the altitude wouldn't be bad. It would be the acceleration of the object.
That's what right.
Yeah, so the other thing too is this happened in 2004, it's 2017 now, just about. It's going to be 2018 very shortly. So, we're talking nearly 14 years ago. This guy's recording an incident from 14 years ago. So, the fact that he's a pilot doesn't necessarily mean that it's... you can take it at face value. I mean, Gordon Cooper, the astronaut, told a story about a flying saucer that came in and landed. The landing gear came out and the people came out, and he saw that and all that sort of stuff. And apparently that was a complete fabrication. He'd actually been told that story, and he wrote himself into it. So you've got to be a bit careful, with regard to people that even if they're in, they do hold positions that you think might give them significant credibility, especially over time. The stories may get enhanced, but I'd certainly be asking, two questions. One, why is there no optical video footage of this thing? And two, I don't know if this guy actually said it. He said he saw a disturbance in the water, but I read that there was some sort of huge thing just under the surface with the roiling steam and smoke coming out of it. We don't hear any more about that. So what happened to that? So it's an interesting story, but I think there's still problems with it.
Honestly, I wanted to fly it.
Yeah,
but, there's, talking to some physicists, they don't think the human body could handle that kind of force with that.
Yeah, it doesn't like the human body could. So bottom line.
Okay, well, why would you be talking to physicists about what sort of G-force the human body could take? Surely you want to be talking to some physicians. Physicists might be able to sort of give an opinion as to how this thing might be propelled, but I wouldn't have thought physicists would be the people that you'd be talking to about what the human body could take.
And what do you think this was?
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
When presumably you expressed that belief to your superiors, what did they say?
Well, actually, we caught a lot of...
See, the other thing too is this display, it's showing sort of -2 degrees. There's no variation on that at all. So, he's flying in an anti-clockwise circle without any kind of variation in sort of pitch or yaw or anything, by the look of it. Obviously, I'm not familiar with looking at these displays, but just looking at that readout, looking at the angle of the aircraft, that's probably more than 2 degrees. So quite what that means, I don't know. But there doesn't seem to be anything changing on that display, does there? Apart from the fact that the background is moving, and it seems to be that again he's travelling in an anti-clockwise direction.
Getting back to the boat, and it got passed off as an event that no one could explain. Now, keep in mind they had been tracking these for 2 weeks prior to us seeing it.
Yeah, so they've been tracking these objects for 2 weeks prior to them seeing it. Again, that's a bit odd, I think. Because if you've got machines, something you suspect is a machine, it's a vehicle, or vehicles that are demonstrating, these terrific, beyond our capability type manoeuvres, why are you not going to? Why are you just going to say, oh well, been tracking them for 2 weeks? Why aren't you going to send something after the first couple of days to have a look at these things and see what they are? Why would you You know, why would you wait 2 weeks? And even then, it sounds as though they didn't go and seek these things out by design. They were vectored to it. And they were doing something else. They were just vectored to it because they happened to pick this thing up on radar. So that, I think, you know, is another big hole in this story. It just doesn't sound right to me.
And this was the first time that manned airplanes had been airborne when the objects appeared.
This feels like a really big...
Yeah, but this is the military, you know. They train all the time for scrambling, you know. I mean, they could be attacked at any time and they have to be at that level of preparedness. So, you know, even if they're not airborne, when these things are picked up, they could scramble a couple of planes and go and have a look at them. So this doesn't make sense either. I don't think, anyway.
Story to me. It's not exactly clear why Vladimir Putin's more interesting than this. I think this seems like a big deal. And Commander, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about it. You seem sober and believable, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Tucker.
Thanks.
Well, you seem sober and believable. Well, he does, but I think the story is interesting. But there are holes, aren't there? I reckon there are some significant holes in this story. Anyway, that's just a bit of a follow-up to the video I did the other day about this 2004 sighting by military aircraft from the Nimitz. If you made it this far through the video, thank you for watching. Maybe I'll catch you again.